Right, welcome back to Roadmap, Auto Trader UK's product and tech podcast. In today's episode, we're going deep on ops engineering. Obviously, a vital role here at AT, and one I have the pleasure of working with Krish, who's with us today, on a weekly basis, but I have no idea why I'm in the sessions. So, welcome Ash, and welcome Krish.
Hello. Hello.
Honestly, it's ace to have you both here today, because I know we've been trying to get peeps from your area on for ages, but everyone's like, nah, I watch it, but nah, I'm not interested. So I'm hoping you two are going to set the world on fire, and then we'll have other people from your area wanting to come on. So let's talk ops engineering at AT. And first up, like, what is actually the role of an ops engineer? Like, how big the crew is, and like how you got into this space and how long you've been here. So I know there's a lot of questions, so I'm going to start with you, Krish, ops engineer.
So the definition of an ops engineer varies from company to company. At Auto Trader, an operations engineer is somebody who would work in a small team, but still within a smaller, wider team. We tend to look after what goes behind the scenes of autotrader.co.uk and the rest of our platforms, making sure that it runs as smoothly as possible. And basically we do that by looking at monitoring. We do a lot of monitoring, looking at screens. My wife says that's what I do a lot. Reacting to alerts and making sure that everything is always up and running, I would say.
And so how long have you been ops engineer then, Krish?
This week, it's been 5 years.
Wow.
Officially moved, I started at tech support, in a tech support role, and moved into OE's 5 years.
Wow.
This week.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought it was longer for you.
No, just 5 years. I had a trial of 3 months where I was between the two roles.
Yeah.
I had the privilege of not being on call during those trials, but then I would say in a few weeks' time would have been the first time I had my first incident, I would say, out of hours, but time flies.
Cool. And so what about yourself, Ash? I mean, like, in terms of, does everything that Krish says resonate when you think of ops engineering? Anything else you'd like to either add or contradict? Or
yeah, I mean, as is the AT way, we do it a lot differently than other companies. Our role is quite wide. So yeah, our main focus is keeping the lights on, especially out of hours when we've got very minimal staff actually working. But we also, maintain the delivery platform. We make sure that the apps are running as smoothly and as efficiently as they possibly can. Even that leading to conversations or even facilitating workshops to educate our staff on the importance of the platform and app health, things like that. So normally we would just kind of be piled in a room somewhere, but we're actually quite visible, which is a great thing about the role at this place.
And how long have you been in ops engineering now?
Well, I thought you'd been longer, so I was working mine out. I started literally before the first lockdown, so 2020 at the time was mine one, and I've similar path as Krish. We were both in tech support. I actually helped Krish with the initial role, and now he's helping me with the ops role, so it's nice how we swapped around. But whereas Krish went the ops route, I went the account management route and did technical account management before pivoting to ops.
Interesting. I think I'm going to do one on TAM in the future, so that'd be we could get an X TAM and a day-to-day TAM. So what, like, if you're gonna saying it's very different in Auto Trader than it is in other companies. So what does a typical day in the life of an OE? Is there such thing as a typical day in the life of an OE?
I mean, we always do a morning report.
Yeah, we have some aspects of it which is always going to happen for us. So OEs, we're on call 24/7. So it's a matter of knowing that it's a shift-based role. So at 7 o'clock, the person who starts here on a working day is the person who's going to be on call, starts at 7, looks at whatever has happened overnight. If it's on a Monday, we look at the weekend. So we look at something called a service mesh. Basically, it's one of our monitoring tools where we look at any sort of real-time traffic. Are we seeing any sort of, anomalies on there, or any sort of traffic trends, or any sort of errors that we should spot? We also use synthetic monitoring. So we look at, basically, these are tools that we use to sort of emulate user journeys on certain critical sections of a business, and then see if there's alert or not. So we prep a little report in the morning that we will discuss with the rest of the team. We have actions that come out from this report. Do we need to speak to certain areas of the business? Do we need to speak to certain developers, test engineers, product people? business analysts to understand why this has happened. And then from there, we would normally look at, are we having, as Ash mentioned before, we look after the delivery platform channel. So are there any sort of requests that come in through there? And then do we need to take actions from there?
So that's how many is in the team then?
We have 5, including our lead.
Yeah.
5 engineers.
5 engineers.
And is it one person on 24/7 support?
We have a rota.
We have a rota.
Right. So what does the rota run? Weekly, fortnightly?
Every 4
daily?
days we switch.
4 days,
We
right.
switch on call. That also covers like obviously bank holidays, Christmas, things like that. But yeah, just every 4 days we rotate the person who's on call. They're on call for that period, which is 5:30 in the evening until 7 in the morning, when the 7 a.m. person will take over for us.
Right. So that's the handover between
Yep.
who's been on call to then who's in the.
Yeah,
Is that the next person on call, or
Yep.
just the person?
that will be the next person on
Right.
call.
So is the report? So I was thinking like where the synergies were like, the dev team. So obviously, morning rituals like stand up, etc. So is your morning ritual the sort of the report to them when everyone comes in to make sure everyone's on the same page
Yes.
of any trends or
It's-
incidents from the previous night and actions moving forward.
It sets us up for the day as well with
Yeah.
that kind of what we need as a daily task, or if something is a reoccurrence, like we've seen the same issue has reoccurred like the last 5 days in a row, for example. How are we going to fix it before we move into the weekend? Because we don't want to be disturbed on call, but is it necessary evil?
Yeah, we were chatting in the lift on the way up this morning because when I was thinking about this so it'd be first job. Like I remember when I got to the point where like, brilliant, Pete, you're now competent. I'm like, yay! Like now you go on 24/7 sport. I'm like, boo! But it was the dread. I mean, like I used to. It was the dread of something coming up that I had no context on, like no deep context on. So that then you're obviously scrabbling around. So just thinking on the 24/7 before coming back in. So is it a case of like how often do you get disturbed when you're on?
It is
on
thankfully
call?
few and far between these days.
Yeah.
There was the bad old days where it would be you could get an alert every time you were on call. Even before that, there were periods where you would go like maybe an hour between incidents, and these were like when we were on premise with all of our hardware, and it was a lot slower to kind of make changes or investigate and get to the root cause of the problem. Nowadays, like we do have it good, and I was quite fortunate because I came in at kind of the tail end, so I didn't see much of the old world. But I think I went 2 months of on calls before I got my last one on last week. That was my last alert in about 2 months.
Wow, that's brilliant. I like 24/7 sport. Sounds good.
Yeah,
They're actually genuine incidents now. Sometimes we used to get just little
Like
blips.
false positives. Sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
now it's something's genuinely wrong that needs either eyes on, or it could even be simply a third party that we may rely on for
Yeah.
certain things, but then we just raise it to their team to correct it for us.
Yeah, so it's not like the bad old days of modems and like what I mean.
No.
You have to dial up, or you can't dial up and then having to drive to the office.
No, thankfully we are able to work from anywhere, tether to our phones if something else is happening. Just want to touch on what Ash mentioned regarding the morning report. We stated a little funny statistic. So we go a bit like in factories. We say how many days since an incident. We have that also. How many days since an out of hours alert? Since we started that, our current record is 18 days without an out of hours alert. So that's quite nice to have.
Yeah. No, because when you said like you get an incident every hour, I remember this. Oh, it was awful. We had a company in Singapore, the place I used to work, and it was just a different time zone. It seemed to be. I started call like at 5:00 on a Friday. Everyone had left and gone for a pint. And like everybody, and like the first one came in. I remember that night. It was just incident after. Like it's the worst.
Yeah.
It's like having a kid. It's when they cry and you're giving you feed them in the night. And you think, I'm just gonna go back down, and then it starts again. You're like,
Yeah.
So I'm glad it's like you're getting these 18-day
Record.
sort of runs. Yeah. So what are the big? So think about it. If you went back, what are the big ticket items over the last N years that have meant we've got to this point of, from an OE perspective, like the size of the team and also the way that is smooth 24/7. You mentioned on site.
Yeah, the on-premise
infrastructure,
stuff.
Yeah. So what are the other big things we've done to say this has made our life either different or a lot better as an OE?
The cloud migration was one of the biggest ones. It's the speed and just even some of the little features of the cloud, like self-healing, like a pod might go down, a pod being a server, in this instance, it's like running the application, might go down, but we still got one that's still serving traffic, or more than one. And then the one that's down will self-heal itself and come back up, or it might fail and
that sounds cool.
it might fail a couple more times, and then that triggers an alert to us. And then, but we've still, at that time, still got uptime available on the site and things like that. It's not like, if something on-prem, it would go down.
Yeah.
And then people would be scrambling. It might take an hour or so to bring it back up. It's crazy how different it is. And I had limited exposure in that old world, but the ease of which the tooling we have available to us, and that's credit to like Carl's team and the work that they've put in on the actual platform. It's just crazy how easy it is, and especially for me, most of my stuff is self-taught. Like, I've not done any college courses or university things, so coming in and having a tool set that, I can understand this.
Yeah,
it's great.
So the tooling a lot of it internally built then, is it, for this?
Oh yeah.
But on top of
Existing.
Yeah,
technology.
we have like our monitoring is bought, so that's provided by a third party. Our on-call, that's a third party. But then internal tools like Skipper, that's strictly built by Carl and his team.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Shipper as well, which is how we build new applications, or how developers build them, but we can use it for troubleshooting. It's all internal tooling. Even the incident management side of Skipper.
Yeah, so I've seen that, because obviously we've been on incidents together on whatever billing on a, like on a Friday, where you've seen it, and then how it does then the incident summary closes and then like prompts for retros, etc. It's like that used to be everyone like, what do we do next?
Yeah.
It's helped a lot, but that tool has evolved also. When we started creating incident, before it used to be manual task, and then now it's automated to a certain degree. So it's created, it pulls in all the logs we need, the tracing we need, things that before we would need to do it manually. And then as time has evolved, we added, that could be a nice feature. It takes away the pressure of us having to find the logs, having to find the traces and things that we can put in one place, sharing the correct links, so that everybody who's joining that incident to help, we can look into it. I think one key thing also that changed when we moved from on-prem to cloud was we have about 713 apps in prod today. We can't be alerting on all of them.
Yeah.
I think what has been introduced is a different, what we call tiering. So we have 3 tiers for our apps in prod. 1 and 2 are the critical ones. 1 is the most critical, so that would be your typical what's great at UK.
Yeah.
And then the other 2s are, I think we have got one also for internal tools, for instance. If they go down on a Saturday afternoon, it's not that we don't care. It's good that they alert, but they don't alert to out of hours, that somebody needs to wake up and say, okay, I don't have any context about that particular application. What needs to be done?
Yeah.
But that can be deferred until Monday morning, I would say, and then we'll look into it with specific devs.
Yeah.
So that sort of, it helps with the balance eventually, but that helps also with a reduced number of alerts we get out of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And so how much of the role is around, like, because I think this is something, again, we're working on a particular project, and I've seen where you started to automate certain things because there's like particular things you have to do, and then we're doing them 2 times, then 3 times. So is automation a big part of the role, that you actually undertake the automation yourself, or is it other people that help you automate particular processes? How does that fit into the OE role?
It's a mixture, really. I mean, a lot of the stuff, especially in the morning reporting, Chris and one of the other members, JD, have done quite a lot of work on automating that reporting. It used to take upwards of an hour to get all the information, especially after a weekend or even a bank holiday weekend. Now it's a case of run a script, here's all your information, put it into a spreadsheet, put it into our Slack channel, and make it look a bit prettier so we can read it. So that just saves them a sheer amount of time now with the automation. And then the incident creation, that was Carl's team that sorted that out for us. But again, just pulling in all that log information is an absolute time save, especially when out of hours, when you're like, you might have just woken up at 2 a.m, you're like, I've got to find logs and stuff. No, it's all there waiting for you. You can just go in, find the issue and fix it. Or
So is there new stuff to be automated all the time, or is that
Always.
really?
Yeah. Depending on what we see. So our demands would change also. What's expected of us will change. So we will think, okay, that's a manual way. Can we automate it? And to what extent can we do that? can we still keep fine tuning it? And that's always a work in progress, as much as we want it to be. And we are blessed with good leadership, so that we are allowed to have a certain level of autonomy to be able to do that, and invest our time, and then because at the end of the day, it's a benefit to the team.
Yeah. And so, what was the? I mean, this is like I was thinking about it. Was there like a lot of where you have to go really big on automation, and then it's more incremental, or is it just been a organic? Actually, this thing now is getting to the point where automation is going to help us. How do you do that prioritization? I know you said you got like autonomy to make the right decisions. Like, when do you make the decision that this thing needs automated, or is it that you've got a huge backlog of things that you want to automate already?
I think it's more organic, as in when we see things. I mean, the beauty of it is we will see, for instance, the morning report. What helped with that is we've gone through the pains of doing the morning report after the bank holiday. That's 4 days worth of going through that. It can be tedious, and there's always a case of a human element behind it, so we might miss something. How do you uniformize that? So that's why we decided to say, let's try to see if we can pull a script together and then make that automated. Also, what helped is about a year ago, we changed our synthetic monitoring provider. They come up with a different sort of toolkit, and that helped with, okay, we can hit their API directly, get those failures. And I was like, okay, that's easier than having to go scroll down and look what's actually a failure, what's the cause of a failure. These days, it takes a couple of minutes, and we got it.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating because it does. I mean, this is the bit, like, say we work together like on a weekly basis, catching up on stuff. But it's really when you start to get into the nitty gritty of all the things that, because I'll always see that narrow view of that particular application we're working together on, which is a bit of a pain, is I just see the very narrow view on that one thing. So in case, when you look at all the apps in the tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3, is it a case of like the level of monitoring around the tier 1? Is it standard monitoring across the place? It's just the alerting that's tiered, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for things like the homepage, we might have multiple fail safes. So we might have a synthetic monitoring test. We might have a test that runs more frequently in another provider. Just to give us that clarity. We don't want we care that the homepage is up, but we don't want a blip to be a false positive. We want to know for sure actually something's wrong. And we have DNS checks as well for the homepage. So yeah, we have some kind of fail safes set up in those sorts of places.
And what kind of, like, again, I was looking at like gov.uk, because I like the way that they set out their role description. So like, if I was wanting to move into OE, what are the core skills now that we're looking at? Because obviously I was looking at the way that they talk about like communication. There's a level of technical understanding. There's high level of technical understanding, but there's certain tech skills that they expect and certain ones they don't. So if you were going to bring in a new OE, what are the things you're looking for as part of the like what makes a good OE? So I get there's a willingness, like you said, to be on 24/7 support, even though you might go 4 months without getting alerted once. Like, yay! But obviously there's lots of skills. So how would you describe what does make a great OE?
I think we need to be focused on, it's similar to the values we have at a trader, being curious and determined. So the curiosity bit is, okay, this is something I'm learning. Be keen to learn, essentially. Having certain levels of analytical skills, because we look at trends like, oh, this is an anomaly, this is not. Being able to communicate and be willing to collaborate with the people. We don't sit in our silos. We go and talk to developers, BAs. So I think having that ability to be able to communicate with people, be approachable, and as much as we can.
Yeah, it's more kind of the team fit. Like, we don't have. I mean, as I say, I kind of just sidestepped into the role. It wasn't like a formal application or anything, doing all these tests, etc. I think you were specifically chosen by Dave and JD as well from working with them.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we just made ourselves visible, either intentionally or unintentionally. And again, having that mindset of being curious and just meshing with the team quite well. And then the excellent leadership choices with Dave, Carl, Russ formerly. I mean, obviously some kind of love of technical stuff is appreciated, but it's not a massive requirement, I would say. It's more, you as a person.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, like, because we have calls, again, Dave's and those ones, but we're thinking about it's a bit of being able to articulate the problem, make sure people understand the importance of that problem, and especially bringing it to life when you go, but this alert that we keep getting if we don't fix is actually waking me up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Or this is the outcome that a particular, like, whether it's consumers or retailers has it, and I think it's that articulation. So it's interesting when you were saying earlier around there's times where you're doing education back into the business, and so how does that form? Is that part of retros of saying, like, there's been a retro of the incident, and how do we, like, not make the same mistake twice? Or is it actually like briefing out into new developers or new people joining the business? How does sort of the OE education bit work?
So I'll handle like a workshop side if you want to do like post-mortems.
That's fine.
So there's a delivery platform workshop that Carl's team, specifically like Ryan and Mike and Alex, they've all kind of worked on and built this workshop of what the delivery platform is.
Yeah.
It's something that most developers do. We've done it as well as part of our learning. And recently, I've been able to help facilitate with that. And you get some people who are like long-standing devs who've been with the business for years. They're principals, they're technical leads, but there's always something to learn from it. So
is that because the platform's evolving all the time?
The platform's constantly changing. So being able to give that back is nice. But it's also, you take some of that knowledge and apply it to teams that might not necessarily have much exposure to the delivery platform. Yeah. So it's a nice way to kind of share that knowledge around.
I might go get on one of these workshops.
They're very good. Very good.
So that's like more of a dev community, like education. This is what the platform can do. It's not going to do roadmap. Or if I'm a new dev joining the organisation, sort of like, this is the tooling you got access to.
The other one is post-mortem.
Yeah, so
I've been on a few of these for my sins.
It's not for sins. We need to remember it's always a blameless culture we have here.
Yeah,
and that's what we foster. We want to keep pushing on that. Because at the end of the day, it's all about learnings. What can we learn? What do we do? What can we do better so that this doesn't happen again? Yeah. So we will always, when you have retros or postmortems, we'll always go through a list of actions that either does it require more testing? Is that something that we could have detected before? So in a proactive way, should we have looked at non-prod environments? Could we have seen that error there? Do we need additional monitoring? So some actions we will take as part of OEs, because sometimes if it's an incident that involved a third party, we might handle that sort of conversation, take that pressure away from the devs, and then also we are always there to help in some ways too, so that we make sure that the dev feels a bit more comfortable with making sure that they've got all the right tools to progress their work. Yeah.
So it's interesting, you talked about third-party ones, because that's where I think previous life with Dave, you've referenced Dave a few times, like holding a particular partner to account and like just that matter of fact of going through the data and saying, well, we looked at it and this is what the logs are saying, we've analysed it with the devs, and actually the problem is like on your side, and these are recommended steps you take, and just like that, delivering it, and a bit like you said, probably that morning report, delivering the facts of things, saying that, and this is how we need to prevent it going forward, or not or else, but like, because we can't keep getting like alerts at 2 o'clock in the morning when we don't know there's going to be an outage. So the other thing I was going to ask then, so like is the role, how much is reactive versus proactive? Because I had an assumption it was a very reactive role, because again, just because of the 24/7 support, but is the balance between reactive and proactive?
I feel we're shifting more and more to proactive every day. We still react to alerts, but with the amount of granularity that we have in the monitoring, when we used to have the big screen, we would have the service meshes up on there. We could see, actually there's an increase in errors that are occurring on a particular service before that's even hit an alert threshold, so we can go and investigate, see what's happened. There might have been a release. Let's speak to the dev and see, can we back that out before it causes any impact. So we're getting a more proactive, but there will always be a reactionary element to our job, especially with the on-call. We're asleep at that point and not just watching a screen waiting for an error to happen.
No, I don't know. Chris said his wife, that's all you do, stare at screens all day.
Yeah, she on the first night I went on call, I had couple of incidents, I would say. And it was a Friday night, and she
Oh.
told me, "Is that how on-call is going to be?" Yes. And then she told me, "You better sleep downstairs." And that's what I've been doing, on the sofa bed downstairs. But anyways, yeah, just to add up to what Ash said, so part of the morning report, we also look at the pre-prod environment.
Yeah.
So if we start spotting some sort of trends on some applications happening, in pre-prod, we don't want that to happen out of hours. So in that way, we'll be a bit proactive and say, reach out to the developers.
I didn't realize you looked at pre-prod, and then you can already go in, something does not look right here.
Yeah, sometimes we do that, yeah.
Right. Interesting. And so what is the relationship like? I know you joked at the beginning saying maybe in other organisations, OE are off in a cupboard somewhere.
Yeah.
So I know like we all sit on the same floor together. So is that collaboration between like the platform space you work in and the developers, is that like something that has like grew over time, or when you joined was it already quite a healthy relationship between the two areas?
I think it grew over time. I'll take the example of, so we have a stream for Portal called Pies.
Yeah.
At that, when I joined in, it was already in its infancy stage, and it just grew with that organically. So people here care about the different streams. We want to make sure that any issues can be tackled. So we used to have stand-ups with them, but across one stream. But we also have regular meetings with, I think you go to quite a few meetings with other areas of business. So that's how we cultivate that, nourish it, make sure that we are not looked as harbingers of doom walking about. We're actually quite nice people.
Well, I think when we worked in Newton like years ago, it was when I used to go upstairs to see Dave or whatever, like, you know, because something was going drastically wrong. I could see him like, you know, like his head go, oh, God, he's here again. But yeah, no, it's interesting. So what are there any like, I know like we talked about the data center migration. So are there any other like big like sleeping giants of stuff that we're starting to dig up now that is going to probably again evolve OE world in the future?
I think there has been, we don't mention it sometimes, but it came hand in hand with cloud migration, possibly a bit prior to it, was we started using Cloudflare. It's just one tool, but it's just being able to exploit all the different functionalities it's got.
Yeah.
For instance, it can detect, currently we feel like there's sort of a DDoS attack happening on a trader. It will put some sort of managed firewall rules to block that sort of traffic, and prevents that from going out of hours and wake somebody up.
Yeah.
So that sort of tool has helped also. We use it for other instances, normally for dealer websites, etc. But it's just having the visibility of that tool and being able to take advantage of everything they offer, essentially.
Yeah. So it's more like exploitation of stuff now, is it, rather than something big new on the horizon? Or is there any secret squirrels coming along?
Nothing secret squirrels as much. I mean, a lot of our focus has been on helping integrate some of our newer acquisitions into the AutoTrader platform.
Oh, yeah. I always forget because they are on a totally different tech stack as well, aren't they? Yeah.
So a lot of that opens up some interesting avenues for, as Krish alluded to it before, that working with developers. So for myself, it's been with AutoConvert. Like we did the main migration, and then some of the big hitters, like the platform team, stepped away to go and focus on their bit of work, and then it's now with the OEs to maintain and make sure their service help. They've really come on and shone for adopting kind of the mindset that we use on our platform.
Yeah.
So it's been really good.
Because you forget, don't you, when you do an acquisition? I always think about acquiring and people come in, it's new, and bringing them in. But actually, the fact that then we've got a full tech stack that we've got to integrate, put the tooling around it, the same level of monitoring, etc. So that must keep you busy, because obviously we've had a few of them in the last few years. So.
Yep, it sure does keeps us honest.
Brill. Nice one. Cheers for that. So anything else you think for a budding OE that you'd recommend to have a bit of a think about? Or is it more like you said, it's just if you're interested in OE, it's all about the curiosity, tech understanding, but you don't necessarily need to be a developer. It's more the appreciation of the tech side of things.
We pick up skills as every day is a school day, as somebody on my left told me a few years ago. So that's what we do. As long as we're open-minded and here to learn. I'll be honest, it's been nearly 5 years I'm here in this role. I've never been bored one day.
Yeah.
So it's always something to learn.
I know.
And so that's great for somebody like me who likes learning. But also it's a case of, if somebody's interested, come have a day with us.
Yeah.
Spend a
No,
day
honestly,
with
I mean,
us.
it's fascinating. I mean, that workshop you talked about, Ash, is like one where maybe we should be getting more of like some of the prod peeps on and saying this is like just to have that appreciation. Because obviously, because we work on certain apps that are a little bit problematic now and again, so my exposure to OE is probably quite high. But again, it'd be really like now you talked about, it's like it is my perception of probably what, because I only again have a narrow view of what OE do. It's been a bit of an eye opener. So cheers for that.
Yeah, there's a hidden world.
It is. Well, it is, but it isn't it? It's like over there, but no, I love it. So nice one. Cheers for that. And obviously now you're the first two from your area who have gone, yeah, seen that roadmap thing, but nah, you're not getting me on. So I'm hoping now a few more of your colleagues will be up to having a chat. So thanks, Ash and Krish.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Cheers.
no, that was great. And thanks again, audience, for tuning in. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube, and also hit these up on LinkedIn. Hit the new notification button so you never miss an episode. And if you want to, you can also follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And that's us for today. Cheers for that. Cheers,
Thank you.
gents.
Thank you.